Welcome back to another installment of Fellowship of the Rink. Isha.jahromi here alongside your basically all-encompassing news for the Minnesota Wild. Joe Smith, writer for The Athletic and co-host of Fellowship of the Rink. How's it going, Joe?
Going well. How about you?
Pretty good. It's good to be podcasting this week with you and the rest of the SOTA Pod crew with some positivity, not just breaking down, is how or judging how hot John Hines' seat is, or is there a goalie issue? Do we need more scoring, or is there a trade? Well, things have settled down, at least for the interim here, with the return of Matt Zuccarello.
Absolutely. You look at where the team was a week and a half ago, and it was people asking in our last podcast, how hot is John Hines' seat? And no doubt there's obviously some pressure on the whole team and to win that first month. And I think they really kind of righted the ship a certain way. Putting forward the last 5 games gives them a little bit of a chance to take a breath and be like, okay, this is closer to what the team that they're capable of being. I think Friday was the best example of that. Like that, when the Wild are playing well and playing together, that's what they should look like. I think the Zuccarello return was huge, both just from an energy perspective, from the room perspective, which people can make fun of or not, but he's a guy who brings a lot of energy perspective, and he makes their best player play even better, right? And Kaprizov, and you saw those magical plays they were involved in on Friday, including the dropped pass between the legs, no look to Zuccarello, back to Kaprizov. And I asked Kaprizov, it was just instincts, I'm like, your instincts are different than a lot of other people's instincts, man. That was such a special thing. We see him working on practice all the time. So I think Friday was a better example of what they could be. And then they followed up with a pretty solid win on Sunday against the Flames, team that's the lower in the standings. So I'm not saying that they're out of the woods particularly yet. I mean, there's still a long way to go, but they've put themselves back in position to where they're not. If they went the other way and lost 3 or 4 of 5, then all of a sudden you are looking at what'll happen to the coach, or what'll happen to some guys here, and like, what is the next step with this team? What kind of team are they? And so I think they showed kind of the character, and they showed kind of what they're capable of doing when they are all playing well. So the best trade that Bill Guerin probably can make or will make is their guys on their team playing better, because it's as much as he can call around the league and look for trades. And we had in our insider today, I think they'd be one of those teams that would be interested in Jordan Kyrou, who has been healthy scratched in St. Louis. So there are not a lot of scoring wingers out there and available right now. So that's where the best way for them to improve is having a guy like Johansson have a great season, and guys like, Hartman and Foligno. But overall, a really strong week for them heading into another homestand here. They can make up some hay and all of a sudden put themselves in more of a playoff position as you get to Thanksgiving, which we all know American Thanksgiving is a pretty good barometer of teams that are in or out of the playoffs and what they might be, considering a third of the games in the NHL are now going to overtime. So hard to make up points.
Yeah, and I would say 2 out of the next 4 games definitely winnable. I know the Wild struggled against the Sharks in their first outing this season, and the Ducks have been playing well. And I almost am happy as just like a fan of the game that like this long rebuild for the Ducks is finally starting to like show some fruits with all that labor, but still a winnable team, I would say. Golden Knights and Hurricanes are going to be tough, but the Wild had a good and crazy first period against the Hurricanes, and then didn't look horrible in the final 2 periods, just were shut down.
Yeah, I mean, like, they put themselves in position, to score. They tied the game on a Boldy's goal early in the second, and then they gave up the goal the next shift right after that, which was kind of a big blow. But they still, Gustafsson, even though he gave up 4 goals, he did settle in and gave them a chance, like late in the game, to get at least a point if they would have got to overtime. But yeah, I think the road trip was those 2 games were pretty good for them all overall. They could get 2 points out of that, and then to follow up, they needed to win Sunday, right? If they lose Sunday, all of a sudden it's just here we go again. So I think winning Sunday, and Sharks are one of the hottest teams in NHL, which this will drop after that game. And the Ducks are, like you said, like some of the young players, Carlson, Lacombe, all those guys, and then the veterans that they've added around them, Trouba, Killorn, they're really a great mix under Joe Quenneville. So they're near the top, if not the top of the Pacific Division. So the whole standings in the West, like Edmonton is not in the playoff spot right now, right? Uh, Vancouver, and I know Vegas is up there, but so that's Utah is up there. So it'll make it a lot harder because those teams will eventually get out of it. You think, right? So that's why it makes it so much more difficult if the Wild fall too far behind to catch up because other teams are in that same position with them.
If giving up 9 doesn't wake you up, I don't know what what does for Edmonton, Joe.
Yeah, the goaltending needs to be addressed, and it's been kind of like the low-hanging fruit there for how many years now, and
it's been the biggest, loudest, unkept secret in the NHL, and it's like no disrespect to any of the goaltenders there, but they're not Stanley Cup goaltenders. Hell, you're giving up 9. You ain't an in-season goaltender right now.
Yeah, and you can just tell when you be around teams, and no one's going to throw the goalie under the bus, right? At least publicly. But you can tell a team that plays not scared, but like they feel like they can't make a mistake because they feel like the mistakes. And you see the body language of guys when goals go in. You've seen it with the Wild before. You've seen it with other teams. Like if you lose confidence in your goaltender, even for certain stretches, you can only play a certain way, and then it kind of affects your confidence too. So that's why goaltending is so huge. And you see it with the Wild, even like last year when Gus was on. Like this year, obviously, you see Wallstedt having some impressive performances there, earning back-to-back starts. So that's a good sign for them going forward. But goaltending, such an important position in this sport, and it can often take you or it can tank you. And the Oilers are too good of a team to be this low in the standings right now.
Yeah, and I'm excited to get into goalie talk, especially Wallstedt with our guest today, Alex Stalock. In regard to some of the other young players on the team, what are you liking? Obviously, Rossi, Yurov. What have you been seeing in now the little positive stretch for the Wild right now?
Yeah, I mean, Rossi, it doesn't feel like he's young anymore, but like I think he can be the forgotten guy on that line with Kaprizov and Zuccarello, but he's very instrumental. I think Alex Stalock mentioned this on the show today too, just how such a smart player. And everybody can play with those two guys and be in the right positions. And like, there's only one puck, right? And he's okay going to the net. He's okay going to corners, and he's okay helping to facilitate. So he's been really solid. I think he's playing injured too, so that is part of maybe he's not having that production that usually has. But Yurov, I think, was encouraging. He scratched 3 straight games. He took it well, worked late in practice, a lot of work with Zuccarello when he was a scratch. And you saw in that game, and the Islanders scored a goal, but just played a pretty composed game, and he was right positions, and that line was really good. So I think that was a good example of development in the right way, where he was given a reset or a kind of a breather and came back 3 games later. And I think he's making a case to stay in the lineup, no doubt. So that's been a good sign. Obviously Z Buium, I think over the last week has really taken steps too. You've seen how electrifying he can be offensively. Like the Carolina game, he was zipping all over the place. And then defensively, once that all part becomes airtight, like he's going to be really, really special. And so I think he's taken steps, because I did a story last week where he told me he was average this season, which is pretty honest and blunt, which is probably accurate too. He wasn't doing anything really crazy bad, nothing crazy good, but for a first full season in NHL, it's for a young kid, it's a lot to take on. So I think he's taken some strides. So and then Wallstedt, I think especially with Gustafsson not being on his A game, or at least not being in net for some of the Wild's better games, it's good to give him a little bit of a break. And then Wallstedt earning his starts, his first time being a backup goaltender. So that's something that is different for him too. And he's really, what struck me the most, and what people tell me a lot, is he's really improved his practice habits since the last couple of years. And that's so important, being a backup. You don't play. Those are your games or practices, right? And where Freddie Shabbat, the goaltending coach, says like now every practice he's on the whole time, like he's locked in, and that reflects more in their play in games, right? Because the habits are right, technique is right, his confidence is there. And so I think after the start, I think against San Jose the last time when he gave up 6 goals, him and Freddie worked on some stuff in practice, things he needed to fix or tweak or just sharpen up on. And then he took it the right way. And then when he got his chance on Long Island, he was really good. And then, of course, on Sunday against Calgary. So, they both talked before the season about Gustafsson's contract and not meaning anything for Jesper in terms of him still being part of their future. And it's so important to have two good goaltenders because of situations just like this. Let's say your number one is not playing the typical way he is, or at least having the kind of execution and the success that he usually has. Now you can have a guy who comes in and you don't have to worry about the drop off. He can play some games. He can earn himself some stretches, and they can compete, right? This will only raise Gustafsson's game by Jesper having these kind of performances, and vice versa. If Jesper's like, if I want to play, I need to, in my spot starts, be able to deliver and earn the trust of coaches. And he certainly earned the trust of coaches and his teammates. So I think it's a good situation to have when you can rely on one of the other guys when it's not particularly going well, since you know you can't play Gustafsson 70 games, right? No goalie plays that much anymore. So either way, Wolf's was going to play 30 games or 25 games, and now it's just a matter of, when those are and how it can work.
I mean, even when goalies did, having that guy behind there was always super positive. I think back to like Rene and Saros for so many years, Luongo and Corey Schneider, right? And like Luongo and Rene were playing like 50 plus games, but still knowing that like when they were in a funk or when they were hurt, like having the young stud come and A, it's good for his development, and B, show the team and the fans that I'm ready, and like you don't have to worry when I'm there is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we'll see how the next stretch goes. It's such a condensed schedule, up until the Olympics, basically. So you're going to have times 3 and 4s or 5 and 8s, or how many games in certain nights. So it'll be, they've had the most back-to-backs, I think, in the league so far, I believe.
It feels like it, honestly.
Yeah, they have another one coming up this weekend, right? Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
So I think because they play Tuesday, then they're off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Like they have practices, but they have that break. So maybe that's kind of like a little mini bye week. But
I wanted to ask quickly about Damon Hunt. I think he's looked damn good since rejoining the Minnesota Wild.
It's ironic, isn't it, that they figure out that he's an NHL defenseman after they trade him. And
now they got both. Now they got Juracek and him. So it's like, at least one of them is going to be a player.
Well, you're making a deal and then all of a sudden pick up the same guy in fantasy, in waivers the next day, picking him up, so, and it's impressive for him because I know it's a tough position for him to be in. Like he feels he's an NHL player, right? And then he gets cut loose in Columbus, picked up by the Wild, and just doesn't play for a month, right? Like you feel he's kind of a victim of the circumstances of the waiver process, where he could get set down to play, and he got his shot, and he played really well. And, I think it made a case to stay in the lineup, and he's playing his right side. His offside and so I think that's going to be, he's earning the trust of the coaches. And Juracek played the other night because Middleton was sick, but I think it's Hunt's spot until he kind of falters, and he's earned that right. And so good for him.
He's got a point. He's got a point in 3 games. Juracek still nothing.
Yeah, and the points are not as important.
I know they're not the be all end all, but it's something, and the fans are going to talk about it. The fans on Twitter are going to point it out.
Well, Ben Jones has no points in 34 games, and nobody talked about that, when he was playing over here off. Like,
that's true. Not as under the microscope as the young defenseman, though.
but good for Hunt, and that gives them some depth there. And like I think for a guy to be able to play his other opposite side and play that well, it'll just be good for them, and it gives them some more in case guys like Middleton do get sick, and he can play on the left side and upper in the lineup too. So we'll see. It's we did a story in the Insider, Mike Russo and I, that ran today about the balance of the Wild, playing the young kids versus a win now mode, and how that is affecting their decisions on lineups and who's here and who's where, the Ogrins and Heights, and giving them ample opportunity in camp early in the season, and then realizing don't want to push them before they're ready and don't want to force it when they're not ready. And so you can make an argument like, maybe they hope that they'd be further along by now. The Juracek, for example, right? Or like the Europe where you'd be playing more regularly and maybe playing up the lineup or whatever. Ogren, for example, given a chance to play on the second line in camp all the way to the start of the season. So, but John Hynes is coaching for this, to stay in the NHL and keeping this team winning, and he's going to go with the guys he trusts more. And so far, guys like Marcus Johansson certainly deserve to be in the top 6, right? And he's having a heck of a start. I know you're going to want to get into him here, but he played a Stalock game on Sunday. Yeah. And he was arguably playing the best hockey of his career long 9-game point streak now, heading into Tuesday's game before this thing. So where would they be without him? Probably their most consistent performer.
He's one of the only plus players on the team, which is insane to think about as well. I know plus minus is not the be all end all, but like everybody else other than I think Hunt and Trennan, who are like 2 and 0 respectively. And you got Marcus Johansson a +4 because he's just making stuff happen when he's on the ice there. 15 points already in 17 games with 6 goals. It's remarkable, honestly.
And when he got signed in the summertime, what were we thinking? What were Wild fans thinking? Oh, I mean, that's great, 800,000 depth piece, right? Oh, maybe he's a fourth liner, maybe he's an extra forward, right?
I was just gonna say, I think a lot of people expect him to be that scratch forward because if Marcus Johansson, like his game is not bottom 6 clearly. So if there's not a spot for him and the young guys are playing well, I think we all assumed, okay, he'll be that.
And you're healthy. If they're healthy with Zuccarello and Sturmer here, right? Like all of a sudden,
exactly, yeah.
And if you're off or whatever, but it turns out like he's got plenty of hockey left in him. I had a story in the Athletic that ran Sunday talking to him about his career and his path, and obviously his legendary golf skills, which we should have him on the podcast sometime too. 6 birdies in a row at Olympic is no small feat.
Jeez.
With rental clubs. So,
oh my god! Wow.
Plus one handicap.
Tarasenko's been picking up his game as well. How have you liked 10 points now on the season? How have you liked his play thus far?
Pretty good. I mean, he started off slow, obviously, offensively, and he was in that top 6 role. But I like about him is like he's not cheating the game. He's not having these egregious turnovers. He's not hurting you necessarily. And especially since, Zuccarello came back, he's handled the getting pushed down to the third line okay. He's in second power play now, right? So I think, and people are like, you're not going to get 25 goals out of him. If you get 16 to 18, that's pretty good, right? And that's fine. So if he can just pick up more 5-on-5 and help with that line, which look pretty good together, that gives you more depth. He's your third line winger, right? And Hartman is a third line center. That's a pretty good group. And then you'll have the fourth line with Sturm comes back with Sturm and Trenyan and whether it's Foligno, whether it's, Hinostroza or whether whoever else you're off, all of a sudden it becomes a little bit more thicker up front.
Oh, absolutely. Anything else with the NHL Wild they want to get into? Because I have 2 quick things I want to hit on in regards to Iowa that I've been seeing fans talk about on social media and that I'm just kind of interested in as well. Yeah,
I mean, I think the NHL, interesting to me, we'll see on Tuesday, Celebrini and Bedard atop the scoring race, which is pretty interesting. You have them and you have McKinnon and Crosby, and the whole decision that Canada's going to have to make, for their lineup. I think Macklin Celebrini is not cementing a spot if he hasn't yet.
He's earned it, I think.
Yeah, he's earned it. And then you have Connor Bedard, and then what about, you have Bo Horvat,
I know, right?
The Islanders, and he's a guy who's getting strong consideration, I'm told, as well. It's not all in a vacuum of, Celebrini is this, but I think he should be on the team. The way he's playing at elite level, he can do a lot of play in all situations. But that's the most interesting thing for me right now, the NHL, is having those young guys at the top of the scoreboard, and also the Hockey Canada decision, because some of it should be based on how they're playing now versus their career and needs of the team. But if it's based on how they're playing now and who's hot, those 3 guys are getting that conversation.
And Horvat, more of a, lack of a better term, well-rounded hockey player than Bedard, who's all skill, all offense. I'm just so happy you brought up Bo Horvat, because as someone who watched his development in a very tough time for the Vancouver Canucks, I'm just so happy that he's become the player that we all thought he'd become, even if it's, not under or not with the Canucks sweater. And even growing up, all local media were like, Bo Horvat will always be a world championship hockey Canada guy. He probably will never be an Olympic hockey guy, assuming that at the time players were allowed to go to the Olympics. But now that he's in consideration is just super cool. And he's a tough SOB to play against. And I mean, even Stalock mentioned him when he was talking about the Islanders in the Wild game, how he's a tough guy. Big tough guy to stop in front of the net. And also goaltending questions for Canada as well. I mean, honestly, the States, they're set. They are set. I kind of, other than a few questions here and there, we pretty much know how the roster is going to be for the most part. We know that there's a lot of options for goaltending and who's going to get, more of the starts and whatnot. Whereas in Canada, it's the opposite. For the first time in a long time, I mean, Joe, I grew up with take your pick of Price, Luongo, Brodeur, Fleury. Now
Fleury's
it's
a backup. Yeah.
Yeah, now it's Logan Thompson and Binnington. All right.
Yeah, it'll be
Fleury, maybe. Come on, maybe that's why he's staying. I'm going to say it until the Olympics, until we get the roster.
there'll be some team calling him in January, regardless, probably. So
Yeah,
if they weren't already.
All right, quick 2 hits on Iowa here. Newly acquired Oscar Olausson, man, he is playing incredible hockey for the Iowa Wild. 5 points in 7 games, 2 goals, and just looks insanely comfortable. And not only that, but like one of the best players, if not the best player on the team.
Yeah, I mean, one of those kind of sneaky acquisitions, right? And you need to have some guys that could play with some of your young prospects. And now the start of the season was really rough, right? And then they got Haight back, they got Ogren back. That helps their offense, their lines all of a sudden, and you get him in there too. So more for Greg Cronin to work with. Also need to get good goaltending too. But I think it's, I think there'll be a little bit more help, I think, overall as a group, unless somebody else goes down there. But they need to make kind of smart acquisitions like that to give them a chance to be playing meaningful hockey in March and April, right?
And I think one of those was bringing back Jerry Mayhew too. He's got 4 goals in 8 games and just seems to have not only given a spark to the room, the lineup, but also like the fans. Like I feel like they probably sold a bunch of tickets because fans just love Jerry Mayhew in Iowa.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously he can still play too, but that's important. And having veteran guys there, like their captain Ben Jones is still with the Wild. Like it happened like 3 years ago with Dakota Mermis was their captain. All of a sudden he was into the Wild for the first 3 months of the season. Like you need some other guys like that, experienced guys that could help other guys who are capable of being leaders, but don't, like the Riley Heights or Hunter Haights or the Emogrens, guys who are eyeing the NHL. But you need to have guys who are capable and willing and know that this is their lot is playing in Iowa.
Yeah. It's just I'm excited to see that they're also picking up here as well, and the young guys that we want to see develop and put up points and play well are. So I'm excited to see it.
It's good for the organization. It's good, even though there might not be like quote unquote a lot of the high end guys there. There are a lot of competitive guys who can play in the NHL, and curious to see when Haight will get another chance. Ogren, obviously, he's produced, like you can see, he's an AHL producer, right? Can you do it in the NHL? And then we'll see.
Heights look pretty good too.
Yeah.
Just different vibe than last year. Different vibe. Last year it was doom and gloom, and it seemed like every game it was like, here we go again. But now it just seems like the team's identity is shifting, and that's honestly what they needed so badly.
They needed an identity overall, shifting. They needed.
Well, I mean, they had a losing identity last year, I think.
Well, I'm saying like just a style of game. They need something consistency, like they need something, a calling card to build around. So they feel like they have that, and we're looking forward to going down there at some point this season, talking to Greg Cronin and seeing one of my part 3 in my series of the Wild in development this year.
Yeah. Well, before we bring on our guest here today, Alex Stalock, Joe, what are you working on this week on The Athletic? Same with Russo. What do you guys got cooking for us?
Yeah, obviously, continuing the coverage of the games and like the road trip coming up after this week. I actually have a cool Taylor Heisey story coming next week to start the PWHL season for that, which is cool.
Does a certain fake slap shot enter the mix there?
Fake slap shots, back pass, which was the USA was terrific in that rivalry series. And we'll continue to do some stuff on. I have something on Vinny and shows on Hartman too coming. So we'll have a few more features, and we'll have more analysis like our insider as always on Mondays. You can see that Mondays or Tuesdays. So we'll see what this week presents for us.
Awesome. Well, without further ado, let's bring on Alex Stalock.
Sundays are fun days at Zamboni's on 7th Restaurant and Bar. They love hockey, they love St. Paul, and they love bingo. Their charitable gambling sponsors are St. Paul Capitals Youth Hockey, and they've partnered with them for Sunday bingo with great cash prizes, including a $1,000 coverall game. Take advantage of free street parking on Sundays and stop in for great food and drink, cash prizes, and of course, THC raffles during Zambonis on 7th, Wake and Bake, and Smash Mouth Pizza Brunch Bingo Sundays. Come get it.
Joining us today is one of us by way of St. Paul, Minnesota, super fans' favorite while dominating in college hockey, playing for the Duluth Bulldogs, and also had a long and impressive career in the National Hockey League in Minnesota for the Wild, no less. Welcome to the show, none other than Alex Stalock. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, guys. I do got to correct you though. South St. Paul, and I had to send a picture. I had to send a picture to Dan Ruzanowski, who does radio for the San Jose Sharks as well, because they got a picture of Phil Housley up right inside. I think it's gate 2, and it says South St. Paul right under his name. And a lot of people, it says from St. Paul, but I had to explain to him that there's a West St. Paul, there's a South St. Paul, there's a North St. Paul, and how it all works. So,
hey, well,
I
appreciate it. I'm gonna send the note to Hockey DB right now.
I would love to. I don't even know what Hedigan says if you look it up, or Housley or Justin Falk, but yeah, St. Paul is a little too vague, I believe.
What's the quintessential South St. Paul vibe then, or what's the mentality of South St. Paul versus for somebody who moves to the state from somewhere else, right?
Well, I mean, there's a history in South St. Paul from a meatpacking plant that was there for years and years, and unfortunately, I mean, it's gone now. But the history of the town and South St. Paul, I think, it's probably second or third in total state tournament appearances for high school hockey, and there's just a ton of history that's been through there. And I think just so many guys have so much pride to, say you were a Packer and, versus St. Paul, whether you went to Cretin or Central or, there's so many different schools just in St. Paul that South St. Paul definitely has a ton of pride and hockey-rich history.
As you see, the name of our podcast is Fellowship of the Rink. It's kind of a stick tap to Lord of the Rings. Got a little bit of a fandom there. Are you a Lord of the Rings fan at all, or do you have kind of a nerd itch you like to scratch, like with movie series or book series or anything like that?
No, I'm not, unfortunately. None of the Harry Potter, none of Lord of the Rings. My attention span's literally like, thank God we only got like 25 minutes today. It's probably maxed out, but like Landman, I can get into some shows. Landman was really good. That's the last show I watched, and now they're coming out with season 2, I believe, this month. So I'm looking forward to that. All the way back to like Prison Break season 1 when I was in college was awesome. But no shows, I have a real tough time getting into them, and my wife gives me a hard time that we'll be like 5 minutes into the show and I'm already on my phone doing something else.
Well, I heard you were into ice fishing, right? So is that something you're into? Like,
I do, yeah, I do. When I have time, I love it. Like sitting in an ice shack, it's almost like sitting in a locker room with the boys, and you get 5 or 6 buddies, whether it's renting one on Mille Lacs, or I have a friend that has a pull behind, or even going up to Lake of the Woods and renting one out at Ballard's. Shout out to Ballard's Resorts on Lake of the Woods. But yeah, just spending a day out on the lake and listening to music and having fun with your buddies is a ton of fun. Obviously, people from down south think we're crazy that we want to do that. I know they love the boating and fishing on the ocean or a lake, but yeah, Minnesotans have such a pride in fishing, and the ability to get on ice and in a shack with your buddies is a ton of fun in the winter.
Small attention span, but can sit there for hours ice fishing.
Well, yeah, I mean, get out, walk around, you listen to music, and then you obviously have cribbage. You have a card table in there all the time, and
no, I hear you. It's honestly more entertaining, funny enough, than I'm from Western Canada, and so fly fishing's huge out there. And I would argue, like, it's way more fun to hang out with the boys and go ice fishing than to not catch anything and move up and down a river for 7 hours.
So I actually went fly fishing once in my life, and it was when I was with the Wild. We went out to Colorado to kick off a season for a preseason trip, and we had practice in was it Rifle, Colorado? It was called, I believe, and or Eagle, Colorado. Sorry, and the practice rink was out there. We were staying at Beaver Creek, so we had a little bit of a drive, and Joel Thornton's brother lived out in that area. So he came to our practice, and I ended up chatting with him, biked to our practice with a Jofa helmet on, and he had 2 signatures on it. One was Wayne Gretzky, and then he made me sign it. And I'm like, I'm not signing and ruining that helmet. And he had me sign that helmet. And then I actually went over to a buddy's house, and this buddy had me in his front yard teaching me how to cast fly fish. I've never done it in my life. And he sends me with his buddy. he brings me down to a creek, and I can't remember what river it was. I could look it up on my phone. I'm out in the middle of the river. I have no clue what I'm doing. Fly fishing. I was there for like 3 hours. It was unbelievable. While the rest of the boys wanted to go whitewater rafting, and I was like, I'd never have gone fishing, like stream fishing in my life. And I took the opportunity and went with those guys, and I ended up getting into like 3 fish, but I couldn't land them by myself. Nice. Just because you get them right off your hip and the hook's not barbed. Trying to figure out how to grab them when you got one hand on your pole, that was a bit of a mess, but it was a really cool experience, and it's something I definitely want to do again.
Well, you said Minnesota people have pride, obviously, in being outdoors and ice fishing, all that stuff. They also have pride in athletes who are from Minnesota, obviously playing in the National Hockey League, NFL. And since you grew up a Minnesota sports fan, what was your most crushing moment as a Minnesota sports fan? I grew up a Lions fan, so I was used to kind of like the getting beat up all the time, or just kind of like knowing they'll suck you in for every year and give you a chance of doing it. And then, so what was your kind of most crushing moment?
Mine's probably the 98 Vikings or the 09 Vikings. Probably the 98 because I was a little bit younger and that was my first time going through it, the missed field goal. It was just a fun team, and you didn't think they could lose. They were so explosive. I was, 11 years old at the time, so probably like 6th grade when you start getting into that stuff. And I remember sitting in my parents' basement watching Gary Anderson miss that kick. That one stung. And then I guess, you timestamp it, probably the 03 Wild. That was a pretty fun run. And then that one didn't sting as much because you just didn't feel maybe that, they were running out of gas, just kind of how that playoff series was going. And then the 09 Vikings team, obviously in New Orleans, the crossbody throw by Brett Favre. That one stung. But yeah, for me, that's those are the 2 big ones that really stick out as 98 and the 09 Vikes for sure.
I grew up in Michigan and a Michigan football fan. My dad went to Michigan, so did my mom. And so my fan moment big learning how to be a fan moment then was watching the Michigan versus Cordell Stewart in Colorado and the Hail Mary.
Oh, yeah.
And so my dad was like so crushed, and like I'm like 13 years old, and all of a sudden he gets quiet and he walks out of the room, and I follow him down the hallway, and he goes to the front yard, and there's all these stones. He picks up rocks and throwing them in the front yard.
Started yelling and throwing them.
Hey, Joe,
that was probably about that same time when I was like 6th grade. I remember our recess, the football I used in recess is like 5th or 6th grade at Lincoln Center was it was a Colorado Buffaloes football. They were huge at the time.
With Westbrook and Cordell, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, boys, I was downtown Vancouver 2011, so there was more than rocks being thrown. Let me tell you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was a little different.
That was terrifying.
I just saw a shout out he was at the game, it looked like a night or 2 ago with his family.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Your kids play hockey at all, or have you gotten into
them?
Yeah,
all 3 of them. Our weekends are busy. We had a 7:15, a 9:30, and a 12:40 yesterday, so we're on the ice. It was nice to be done by 1:40 in the afternoon, but our weekends are busy. We got a squirt boy, a mite girl, and then a termite girl. So they're all in, and our winters are busy. They're fun, and you get to see a lot of friends up at the rink, and they get to see their friends. And so many of the parents up there got multiple kids in sports, and it's the rink's a spot in Minnesota, obviously in the winter, where it's almost a gathering point, and it's a second home. That's for sure.
Yeah. Your son a goalie? Does your son play a goal? Or?
Hell no. Yeah. No. They've all asked. I said, you got to learn how to skate and learn the game. And you can always go back and play goalie, I told him. But I think he's over it. My middle daughter's probably got the mentality for it. She's in her 2nd year. She's really starting to kind of really like sports and enjoy it and enjoy being around friends and understanding it. So that's exciting for her. And we'll see if she asks again. And she tried it a few times last year. She had a smile on her face the whole time, gave up a lot of goals. I don't think she fully understands the point of it other than putting the gear on and enjoying that aspect. But there was a lot of goals that went in, and she hasn't really asked too much since, so it's been good. But we got our outdoor rink going up here soon, so my guess is our oldest boy is going to be telling her to put her gear on so he can have a goalie. So we'll see how that goes, because that's kind of how I became a goalie. I had an older brother, and the only way I could hang out with him and his friends was if I had to play goalie. So see if that trend continues.
Well, Alex, growing up in Canada, I became aware of the goaltender Alex Stalock upon you playing for the San Jose Sharks. But Minnesotans and NCAA fans here fell in love with you on and off the ice, so much so that in college you had a group of super fans.
Yeah.
I mean, tell us about when you first saw the Stalock super fan videos.
I mean, I still remember the night. I was in my room, my college dorm, or not my dorm because we had a house that year. It was my sophomore year, and I got a call from Drew Akins, a former teammate that was living at a different hockey house, and he's like, "Dude, you got to put on YouTube, type this in." I'm like, "What is this?" And that's kind of the first night that it came along. And I think one of the guys was on the track team there, but they did it in the dorm, and I didn't really know who they were, to be honest. And still to this day, I think I've met like one of them.
No way.
They did and so it was our sophomore year, and they started it like right away at the beginning of the year. And then I think our first couple weekends didn't go so well, so it lasted like 4 or 5 weekends, and then it kind of tailed off. And lost a little bit of pop they were hoping that the season started with, and it didn't turn out we had the greatest season. They did it one season probably too early, because then that next season we were much better. But it was fun. It was funny for a while. The stuff they came up with was pretty incredible, and I don't know if there's someone on our team feeding them information or what, or where they were getting their intel, but that was really good stuff, and it was pretty funny.
Yeah, in our early like intro videos to the podcast, when we started doing YouTube and stuff, we had just clips of them in like a big Minnesota like hockey montage, and like the hardcores were like, "Oh, thank you for including that." Like that was so awesome. And then I have a friend, and who does work with us here on the podcast, who went to Duluth as well, and he was just like, he was in tears.
He was there around that era, or he was young?
He's a little bit young. He's a little bit younger, but he definitely was aware of it, being a guy who went to the school.
Yeah, there'll be random guys that bring that up, and I'm just like, I honestly wish I knew them, and more credit, because that was awesome. Really good stuff.
Well, speaking of characters, with the recent big news of Joe Thornton's Hall of Fame induction, and of course just so many clips of him doing things in the community that always have a fun Joe Thornton twist on them. There was one that surfaced, I think, just a couple of days ago, of him going with his son to his like old hockey team when he was a kid, and he
was in St. Thomas
he was in St. Thomas, and he's tearing up, and that just shows just how passionate Joe still is for the game. I mean, what was it like having Big Joe as a teammate? And I mean, if you want to share a couple quick stories.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. It would last all day. For me, he was. He had the personality. He just lets you be who you are, which was so important to be a young and coming in as a rookie, to be like comfortable in your own skin, and you made it here for a reason. Be who you are. You don't have to fake and act like somebody else you aren't. And that was so important. And, just early on at a young age, seeing how much his family, his kids meant to him, how much he loved the game of hockey. And, he shows tearing up, and he obviously loves the game, but it's more so just what brings him back, and like what his roots, like his parents, how much they mean to him. His dad and mom used to come to so many games on the road, and so many breakfasts we'd eat. This was before we had a meal room, and we were on breakfast on our own. We'd eat in the hotel lobby, and his dad would join us if it was like 4 or 5 of us in the lobby, and his dad would be joining with us. And, I've had the ability to go up to St. Thomas and see his house that he goes to in the summer. And, he takes pride in it. He drove us around town in his car and to all his parents' house where he grew up, and all his buddy's house. And we'd pop into their garage, and it was just so cool to see that side of it, his passion for everybody. And, it wasn't, he's a guy that it didn't matter if you were making $10 million or, $500,000, you're a league minimum guy. He loved everybody the same, and made sure everybody was pulling on the same rope, and he was just an unbelievable team guy.
That's awesome. And now him and Marlowe have just become landlords to young players coming into the league. Have you heard any notes on their new tenants in Will Smith and Macklin Celebrini?
No, I mean, it's unbelievable for them. I mean, can you imagine being a young guy and having Joe as your, I guess Joel's picked up Xbox a little bit more from what I heard. He's playing a little bit more Fortnite. And his boy's getting older. River's getting a little bit older too, so I think he's gaming. But it's great for them, and it's showing how much it's helping those two grow into the league. I mean, you saw last year how good they're going to be, and then this year it's coming out how good they actually are. And I couldn't imagine. I wish there was a live stream of the inside of that Thornton house with him in there, because I'm sure there's a few times where Macklin's just shaking his head like this guy can't be serious, but he keeps it light. But I know he truly, is helping him in good ways. And, those two are still going to the rink as much as they can and helping with, whether it's face-offs or power play. And, I think Joe's still going to the rink just so he can shower in the locker room with the boys and enjoy that part of it because he always missed that. And I just saw Demer's video today. He was on a podcast talking about when Joe went into the rink one day with power tools and took the doors off the shitters at the bathroom because he wanted the team to become closer, like it was prison. And he had those off for like a week. And it's like, what are you doing? I'm going into the rink and there's no doors. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
He keeps it light. And it was always something new when you go to the rink. I mean, you walk in and you could hear his voice all the way down the hallway. His deep, distinct laugh. And it brightened up your day if you're having a good day or bad day, that's for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, one of the best to do it for sure. As we transition into some wild talk here, I just quickly wanted to bring up and congratulate you on your now new budding broadcast career. Right. I was listening to one of the games the other day, and I kind of finished work, turned on the game. I was about 5 minutes in, and I'm listening. And I'm like, oh man, like this is some damn good commentary here tonight. And then it took me like 2 minutes to be like, oh my God, like that's Stalock. So for someone who does broadcasting for a living and did a lot of hockey broadcasting, mostly junior stuff when I was younger, I am insanely impressed with how seamless it seems the transition has been and just how you are to the point and do a great job providing color to the game. What has it been like for you, and how have you enjoyed broadcasting so far for Sharks and Wild?
This interview is brought to you by our friends at Waggle Golf. Waggle Golf believes what you wear on the course should reflect your individuality, who you are, where you're from, your hobbies, interests, and passions. All the stuff that makes you, well, you. That's why every design is inspired by the desire to create a piece of apparel that strikes a chord when you see it, that makes you say, wow, that was made for me. Because in a lot of ways, it was. Ready to get your waggle on? Go to getyourwaggleon.com, throw in promo code SP10 at checkout to take 10% off your entire order.
Oh, I appreciate that. It's been exciting. I love the game of hockey. I was fortunate to spend so much time in the National Hockey League and the American League. And, mainly my role when I got to the National League was a backup, and you sit front row every night, and maybe once a week you play, but you get to see the game from a different angle. You're always next to the D and forwards. You get to see the communication between the forward coaches, the D coaches, the players, and you're right there and you're right in the play all the time. So you see the play happen so much, and you see a lot of goalies that are getting involved in broadcasting that do such a good job. And, like a guy like Brian Boucher, who I've been fortunate to run into at San Jose events and pick his brain a little bit about his route, and I've gotten help from him. And so that's been awesome that people are willing to help. And, obviously got to thank Dan Ruzanowski, who the Sharks gave me the opportunity when Brett Hedican left to do take a job with Anaheim in a development role. The color job opened up, and they decided to use alumni, which is kind of cool. They've got 6 or 7 alumni chipping in throughout the season. And to work with Dan Ruzanowski, who's been the play-by-play there in San Jose since day one, that has been huge in just learning the preparation, different ways to approach it, how professional he is, doing interviews with players, that side, and just getting over the comfort level of really just hearing your voice live on air for the first time. And so that was huge last year to get games with San Jose, go through all that. And then obviously being close with Ryan Carter here, and listen to him and Wes and those guys, how good they've been for years here. Like, just seeing what they do. You watch so many Wild games and take away what you like they do for games. And that ability has been, for me, it's been helped tremendously. Getting thrown right into TV is there's a little bit of learning behind the scenes stuff, because radio you're live. There's none of the cameras that you have to prepare for. So that side's a little bit different, but I love it. I'm still watching hockey. I enjoy being in the press box and running into guys like you, media that you haven't seen in years, but now even the front office side, you're getting, for example, we're in the island and Matt Martin's up there, who's taking a assistant GM role or assistant to the GM role with Matthew Darsh. And you see guys that are just kind of leaving the game and figuring out what they want to do next, because hockey's been there their whole life. And that part, enjoy. You get the hour you have before broadcast up top. You get to see a lot of faces that, are ex-players or ex-media members that you dealt with. And that part's really fun.
One of my favorite parts, of the job too, is just in the dinner and dining room for media dining. Like in Tampa for years, Scotty Bowman was my dinner partner, downstairs with Demolano and those guys, because they were all there as scouts, right? And so you pick their brain, and they've forgotten more about hockey than I've ever will learn. So it's kind of a cool thing who you run into and who's still in the game and who's still passionate about it. And I pick up so many different things just by listening and being around. So
absolutely, yeah. The mail rooms, obviously, I got to try to stay out of there a little bit more, or spend less time in there as far as eating. But the people you run into in there, it's really cool or interesting, the ties. And, you get done, you kind of ask somebody if you don't know who they are. And then, you lead into like Kevin Gore, you're like, who was that you were talking to? And you get information like, oh, I should have went and talked to him. I didn't know that's who that was. But, yeah, there's a lot of faces that you kind of reconnect with. And, they got the roster of who's in that building that night and seeing the scouts who's in there. It's always fun in case somebody play with you and go and chat with them. But, it's another good way to, get intel on what's kind of going on around the league for sure.
Had a few wild questions before we let you go, and especially on the goaltending position, since obviously you played it for such a long time. I wanted to see if you can break down Gus and Wally for us, but Gustafsson, what do you like about the way he plays, and where do you evaluate his game right now? I know the team wasn't playing well the first month of the season, so it's probably hard to gauge. Goaltender, you can't have control of everything right in front of you, but what do you like about Gustafsson overall as a goalie, and then where do you see his game kind of right now, month into the season?
Well, I think his mindset is, his the way he kind of carries himself. He's got that that ability where he can brush a game off, a night off that he doesn't feel he played as strong as he could, and he's got that even keel mentality where he's not way too high, way too low. The consistency you get on him from a night-to-night basis, I think, is so huge. You talk about the first month of the year. The team's not in sync. It didn't seem like as much as they were last year. So that's tough on a goal. You can steal a game here and there. It's hard to steal 10 straight. And for him, I think you play in a system where where shots are going to come from, and all of a sudden it gets a little chaotic and there's a little bit more turnovers. Now things change as you get a lot more grade A's and kind of get away from your system. But, obviously we saw Wally get back-to-back starts. So he gets a little bit of a reset after the first month, which is kind of a little bit of break of how it went. The team get back to over 500. But for him, I think it's huge to get a little reset. He's going to have, 3 games in 4 days coming up here. Probably going to play 2 of them. But he's going to play a lot of hockey, and you got to think Olympics too. Travel and all that. It's going to be a busy year. So I think any time you can find a game where you spot Wally 1 or 2 with an extended break for Gus is huge. And I love his mentality. I love his composure, his calmness in the net. His feet are so good. And when he's at his best, pucks find him and hit him in the crest all the time. And he beats plays. And that's when that, Gus is on his game.
And I know Wallstedt's a little different style of goalie. Obviously, both came from a similar goalie coach in Sweden too. But just goalie of the future has always been thought of as the number 1 goalie of the future, and he's going to have to wait for that. He's going to be nothing wrong with having 2 good goalies in your system or good on your team, of course. Just where do you see his game at? What makes him different than Gus, and how much growth have you kind of seen? Just watching him a little bit.
Well, it's a small sample size, and I think he's 10 games into his career, 11 now.
Yeah.
And his legs are tremendous, his explosiveness. He's got all the tools, that's for sure. And it's a position that kids are coming into the league so prepared at a young age now. If he's only 22 years old, and it's so early in his career. I mean, 22, I was still in college. I couldn't even imagine playing at that level. And it takes time to understand the game from that position. I just remember thinking how fast the game was at a certain point. As you get older, it slows down a little bit. You start to read the play and you figure out when you can expend energy and what helps. But he has all the tools, and in that position is so much in between the years, and it's hard between, in a short sample size of what we have so far. Obviously, there've been really, really good nights, and there's been nights where he probably wants, a few back. But that's what you're gonna have in a career this when he's this young. But one thing he does definitely bring is puck handling, and he shows he wants to do it. And a prime example is against the Islanders the other night, a team that just wants to get the puck low and forecheck and use their big bodies like Horvat and Lee and go down there and just make it hard on young Wild's defenders. He made a big difference in that game. Obviously, he made some big saves, but just breaking up their forecheck and getting out and make small little plays like that went unnoticed by a lot of people how effective that can be, especially against a team like that. So his ability to do that, his willingness to do that at a young age is really, really cool to see. Like all the tools are there. His feet are so good. It's I think it's up to him the ceiling how much he wants to take this, and I think he has superstar status. It's just figuring the game out mentally and understand that it's going to take time and it's not a rush. And for Wild fans to realize when you draft a guy first overall doesn't mean he's going to be in the net tomorrow, being a starter and being in the likes of like a Bobrovsky or Vasilevsky.
And you love handling the puck too when you were playing, right? You love handling the puck, and I think you wanted to score a goal, right? Back like they did back in the day.
Yeah, I really wanted to score, but I think you learn how effective simple plays. You're in college, the trapezoid wasn't there, so you could be flying into the corner and trying to make home run plays, and understanding that just relieving pressure for your defensemen, and not having defensemen like Jared Spurgeon and Jonas Brodin and Brock Faber, getting pounded through the glass over and over and over, because that gets tiring in an 82-game season. And if you can help them out anyway by saving a body check throughout a night here and there, it's so effective. And you get out of your defensive zone so much faster, and you get to go play on the offensive side, and that's where this team now wants to go play with all the skill they have up front.
That play the other night where Kirill did between the legs to Zuccarello, you knew it was going right back to him, right? Like the chemistry between those guys has been written about a million times, and we've seen it live for 5-6 years. Like, how would you describe it as a former player or as somebody who'd go up against them? Like, how would you describe it? Who would you compare to anybody else you've seen in the league, the two guys together, like that kind of chemistry?
Yeah, Rittich, the Islanders goalie, should have just stayed with Kirill. He shouldn't even. I mean, Zucchi's not going to shoot from there. It would have been great if he just stayed on Kirill and was squared to us one time for the whole time. But he doesn't know any better. Their chemistry is unbelievable. They're like, I mean, you watch them in practice. They're doing that stuff, and you're like, what do you get clowns doing? They're doing all this stuff where you're like, really? That's never going to work. They stay out after, and they're in their zone screwing around, shooting pucks at each other. But that's the stuff that pays off is their chemistry together. It's unbelievable. And like Zucchi, the puck's never on a stick. I mean, it's always on a stick, but it doesn't last more than a second. And he already knows where he's going with it. And he's so good with those touch plays. I mean, chemistry-wise, it's like it's so hard to compare. Like, McDavid and Draisaitl, they play like a little bit of a different style when they're together. And you think back like to Nicholas Backstrom and Ovechkin, they were, that's a different dynamic, that they had, and one was more of a heavy, dominant shooter, and one was a passer. And you think back to even like San Jose days with Joe Thornton, what he did with Jonathan Chichu back in the day, and then after that it was Devin Setaguchi.
Daniel and Henrik too. I know they were twins,
Henrik and Daniel, you got to put them up there, right? That's probably the closest, really, to compare those two is the way they play and they feed off each other. And I don't want to call Marco Rossi the Alex Burrows, but Marco Rossi is so important to that line, what he does, because he has the ability to go to the net. He has so much skill. He's so smart. Like, he's a cerebral player. You can't just throw anybody with those two, because then they can kind of play those two, and you have to add a third player with skill. And Rossi helps that line so much and helps those two that it opens up a little bit their creativeness and what they can do with the puck.
Yeah, talk about a guy who's willing to go into the corner too, who's let's be honest, not as big as an Alex Burrows was, right?
Right. Yeah, and that's everybody talks about last year's playoffs, and anybody can go through stretches where 4 or 5 games you struggle, and it just so happens at the wrong time. And he's a kid that's hungry and wants it. And his whole career, I'm sure everybody's been telling him, he's undersized, can't do this. But he's battled his whole life, and he's here for a reason, and he gets points, and he's playing on a top line in the NHL with 2 of the better players in the league. So it says a lot about his mental mindset.
Last wild question. We have one waggle one before I let you go, but they won 4 out of 5 now. Look a lot different than they did the first month of the season overall. Like, is this more like the Wild team you were expecting? Like, where do you think they are as a team? Are they closer to this version, or I know it's unfair to compare them to the previous season in terms of the start they had last year because it's such a regular thing. But where do you think the Wild team is right now.
Yeah.
Is closer to,
you go through stretches where things seem like they're never going to go on. Are we ever going to win again? And then, you go into Carolina, a team that game was crazy. The first 22 minutes, you get 7 goals, and you're like, when's this thing going to slow down? And then nothing happens. And then you go into a back-to-back, a team that's rested for 3 days, to a team that you got in at 2:30 in the morning. And you're like, God, how are they going to pull this one out? Then they go in and dominate that game. And it's like, go figure in the NHL. How do you work this thing out? And then they come home, and now you're thinking, okay, that might be a little bit of a trap game. You come home after a trip, and you got to play, a Calgary team who's, it's hard sometimes to elevate your game against the teams that are lower in the standings. And they come out and they get a win. Do they play their best game? I don't know. They maybe not. But finding ways to win when things aren't going your way is so huge, because you're just putting points away until your game finally comes back and you're really feeling good about your game. And, they got some time now. They got a Sharks team who's, a lot different team than it was when they came in here the first time, even though they lost in overtime. They're one of the hotter teams in the league. So it's never ending in the league. You look at your opponent and you can spin stories different ways, but finding ways to win right now seems like for them is what needs to get done until, you're getting bounces, stuff's going in. Because early in the year that wasn't happening. Bounces weren't going in. You were watching games where they'd have empty nets and they'd fan on a puck, or they'd go and wrap it and hit a post and then hit a post again and it wouldn't go in. It was just stuff like that. And now it seems like it's turning a little bit. You get a good goalie performance last night against Calgary, and you get a chance, which is strange. You get a redemption against the team that beat you in overtime, right back at your same rink you played them a couple weeks ago. So things are going in the right direction, and it's, figuring out who you are. And that's one thing Brindamore talked about too when we were in Carolina, is he couldn't really give a update and a judgment of where his team was. They had so many injuries, and they were only 12 games in the year. He's like, I really can't tell you what we have. So I think it's just such a small sample size this early, and to get back above 500 was huge. To salvage that homestand, get on the road, win a game, and get yourself back before the season kind of got out of hand. And easily could have went, if it goes the other way. Now you're sitting here and you're like, okay, where could this thing go?
Yeah.
Yeah. We have one more question for you, and thank you again for your time.
Final question brought to you, as always, by our good friends at Waggle Golf. First, make sure you head over to getyourwaggleon.com, throw in promo code SP10 to take 10% off your entire order.
Alex, what is your dream golf foursome?
Wow.
And it can be fictional, past or present.
I got this guy. This would be fun.
The John Daly.
Oh, yes.
I got to get this on the wall.
That's awesome. Impressive. John Daly.
Yeah, I got to get that. Now, he'd be up there. That's for sure. Tiger in his prime. Would be a good one. Oh man, who else is there? And it's just tough.
Could be former teammates, could be family members.
Yeah, right. No, I know.
Frank Sinatra has been a regular, funny enough, out of the blue.
Frank Sinatra. Wow. Boy. Yeah, so I got Daly, I got Tiger, which would have been fun. Myself, do I have to play? Sometimes I hate golf so much I don't even want to play.
Honestly, some people have just named four people and been like, I'll just hang out.
Drive the cart,
Right.
drive the cart,
Right. Man. Put me on the spot here.
It'd be a tough one because it's so hard to cut down which ones you.
Right.
You got Tiger and Daly already, the two big hitters.
Is that pretty popular? A lot of guys go with Daly and
Tiger. Daly, not as much. Tiger, yeah, but
right. It'd be fun. I'm a huge music guy, so I'm thinking like a Morgan Wallen or like an Eric Church.
Okay.
I know they like to golf. They're members at a course down there in Nashville. Maybe like a country singer like that would be a ton of fun to mix it up a little bit.
There you go.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Next time for this question, we'll ask you to pick a lineup out of all the South St. Paul players that come out of there.
That'd be tough too.
That'd be tough too.
The good teams were in like the 70s and 80s. The really, really good team.
I love how you did show love to South St. Paul. I'm new to well, I can't even say that. I've been here
Next
for
time
4 years now.
I'll wear like a South St. Paul jersey or something next.
There you go. But I actually just spent some time in South St. Paul. I went to a couple of music shows there, and it just like the vibe there and the community is just, it's really cool. I really enjoyed it.
Concord or what?
It was at a coffee shop.
Black Sheep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right on Southview.
Yeah. And it was really cool. I really dug the vibe, met some cool people. So it was cool.
It's almost like Main Street there.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, boys. Well, thank you.
Thank
Sounds
you.
Good. See you at the rink. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Zamboni's on 7th Restaurant and Bar at 174 West 7th Street, right across the street from Grand Casino Arena. We're going to keep calling it the X. More than just your go-to spot before, during, and after all your favorite downtown events, Zamboni's on 7th is now your spot for late night downtown eats. On game days, event days, and plain old regular days, Tuesday through Saturday. Zamboni's on 7th is now serving their delicious tavern-style pizza, as well as fried specialties late into the night. Check out their menu online at zambonison7th.com or stop by for a few beers, cocktails, or sodas and dig in. Zamboni's on 7th. Before, during, and after. Way after. Now, go for hockey.
But Nate, let's move on now after we've talked about the rest of the Big Ten. Another non-conference series for the Gophers. Long Island University. The Sharks. You're close neighbors now. Basically, your local college hockey team now.
Yes.
Boy, they're coming to Mariucci this weekend. They swept Robert Morris this past weekend. They're 4-5-0. Had a lot of exhibition games as of late, getting a bunch of wins that way. But a win against Canisius and Merrimack to round out their 4 victories. But Nate, I know you said you've seen just a little bit of Long Island this year. What type of stuff have you seen from them? And obviously, it's going to be an interesting series from a really young program coming into Mariucci for the first time this weekend.
It's a really young program. It's a very interesting program. A lot of their team left after their head coach went to Ferris State. Several went with him. And they are an independent. They are defensively oriented, which is always going to be a fun test for the Gophers. They're not obviously on the same level as Wisconsin and Minnesota Duluth in that regard, but they make teams work for their points. They make teams work very hard. You can take it easy. There's no such thing as an easy win against Long Island University, but at the same time, there certainly is a difference in talent level. So I'm really interested to see that. It's a team that I'm assuming most Gopher fans don't know too much about. They're independent. They formed in 2020. Their women's team, LIU is a college, it's 2 different branches merged in to try to be the main flagship, and they try to bring up all their programs to D1 and are kind of using D1 athletics as a way to sell the college, and their play their home games out of the Islanders practice rink, which I've been out. I've seen them play. It's really interesting because you have college hockey going on, and then there's a hallway of kids getting ready the next rink down. It feels very college hockey in that way, where it's one of my favorite things. Sometimes I've had that after covering games where like 2 hours later you're still in the press box and you look down and there's like a mites practice or something going on. I remember I was at Yale once and there was like a Bantams or a Squirts game going on between like Hamden, which is where Quinnipiac's based, and like one of the like North Haven, which is like the town north of New Haven, and just them going back and forth in the Whale. And it's just, I love those little things about college hockey. That's one of those things you get where it's like, oh, ice time is ice time. So they're fun. They play their games. A lot of their games are broadcast on the Mets network during the fall in the winter when the Mets aren't playing. So I get to see some of them, and it reminds me a little bit of those like St. Cloud State home games when they had the college kids doing all of the production and everything when they play on like Comcast 999. if anyone else remembers that. I don't know. I'm just throwing out these old times.
No, yeah, it's a time gone by, but I do remember. Yeah, but one thing too about Long Island that I noticed too. I mean, their head coach, Brendan Riley, he's like a third generation college hockey guy, but he's 29. He graduated from what did it say? Mercyhurst. He graduated from Mercyhurst in 2020. That's crazy.
I believe he's Brian Riley's kid. I think that's the one because
yes, yep.
He's Brian Riley's kid, and then his cousin is now Ferris State's head coach. So he took over for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's one of those things where, and he's also young too. I think he's like 35, 36 or something.
Wow.
So it's one of those time comes for us all. But yeah, just to see.
That's crazy. I mean, I never would have thought he's playing. The guy who graduated college after me is coaching D1 college hockey. That's crazy.
Yeah, Drew, welcome to my world.
That's insane.
We're getting old.
Yeah, that's wild. But yeah, he played at Mercyhurst for 4 years, and his grandpa played. I think at oh boy, I can't remember now. I think it was an Ivy, and his dad played at Brown. So a very East Coast college hockey family.
I mean, this is the first year like 75 that the Rileys aren't that coaching Army. It's a whole it's like one of them isn't.
Yeah,
so the entire college hockey world knows like Riley coaching and it's fun to have. It's fun to see. I always kind of feel a little bad for LIU because of all the independents. They take it seriously. Stonehill's starting to do a little bit more, but they're kind of on their own. They play a lot of the Atlantic hockey teams. They have a nice schedule and agreement with them, but they're not in Atlantic hockey, and it doesn't look like Atlantic hockey wants them at the moment. So they're kind of in this weird no man's land where they're trying to play games where they can. And I know some of the games they tried to do this year fell through, so they played a bunch of exhibitions. But at the same time, it's a tough spot to be because in a perfect world you'd have more of those smaller conferences. You'd have places for teams like LIU, and it'd be more of a promotion of, hey, this is how new programs and teams can start up. But at the way things go right now, it's tough to like sell a team on, hey, you can come up, you can start, you can put a little bit of money in, but there's not going to be a conference for you. You have to figure out a way to play. Like that's no college, no AD is going to go sell on that. But that's what LIU has been doing. They're running as an independent. They're going anywhere and everywhere to play. And for this weekend, they're going out to Minneapolis.
Yeah. And that's obviously for a new, smaller school, a newer program to be able to travel out here for a non-conference game. And obviously, travel is just such a big expense for a lot of the schools and keeping programs going and, keeping, obviously, if they have the ice at the Islanders facility, that's good. But it is good to see that they're able to make these type of big time travels. And obviously for them, this is an incredibly big game to play against one of the more established programs in all of college hockey, and not just on the East Coast, but really make an effort to go out and play a team like Minnesota. So it should be an interesting weekend.
It really should. And I probably should mention one last thing of I think they lost twice against Penn State at Penn State, but I believe that both those games were fairly close.
Yep.
For at least a good stretch. So,
and they lost to BU too, and it was close. It was 4-2, I think.
Yeah. So like a win against LIU is considered a good win. Just as long as you may not know as much about the name, but they make teams earn everything that they get.
Zamboni's on 7th Restaurant and Bar right across the street from Grand Casino Arena in downtown St. Paul. You'll find a joke at 8 p.m. on Wednesdays. Enjoy happy hour food and drink specials when you stop in for the shows. Or if you've got something to say and enjoy stepping into the spotlight, go to zambonison7th.com and sign up to join the show. Spots fill up fast, and they do cap the number of comedians each week, so do not delay. Also, stay tuned for details on their once-a-month Friday night comedy show, Freaky Funny Fridays, beginning Friday, November 21st, featuring some of the hottest comedians in the Twin Cities. Zamboni's on 7th is a joke, but only on Wednesday evenings. And the occasional Friday. Thank you all for tuning in as you continue every week. Numbers keep growing. You guys have been awesome supporters. Do also check out some fun things across the network. We've actually just wrapped up our top 20 Minnesota Wild prospects collaboration we did with the Minnesota Wild prospects account, both on Twitter and Facebook, that you all love. Great work there from Baki and Pavel. Also, the formerly known as group, Sound the Foghorn. Brett, of course, a member of the network as well now. But check out, again, our rankings are far from perfect. Come in, tell us what you like, dislike. We're open to any discussion there. You can check it out both on Judd's Buds and on the YouTube channel. And if any of you that are into beer, I know that it's not for everyone. So if not, hey, totally understand. But anyone that likes craft beer, you were probably as bummed as me to see Dangerous Man fall by the wayside. They are already back. They are going to come back stronger than ever. Beer coming out soon in distribution, and check out the interview for some nuggets on what comes next as far as regrowing, rebuilding that awesome brand and experience. But that's it for this week. Tune in next week. Stay classy, stay to hockey.